So since we started development on DayZ, the agenda has actually changed quite a lot. Originally, what started out as a mod with quite a limited scope because of what we could do without access to the source, we've actually been able to sort of drastically change what we intended to do. Once we released the standalone as well, with the massive success of the sales in the last quarter, it's meant that we've also been able to be much more ambitious about what we can do. And I guess that's what I'm going to be talking at Rezzed today, is all the new things and some of the refocusing that we've done to make the game play a lot better. So there's been many things added to DayZ that weren't originally planned with the standalone. An example of something is originally we thought that we weren't going to be able to do ragdoll, and ragdoll and throwable physics items that actually respond to the world. That's something that's basically functionally complete now and coming out very soon. So that's a good example of something that we didn't think was going to be possible that we're bringing in. Same with persistent objects. We're looking at expanding the persistent objects far beyond what we originally anticipated, so players being able to actually save or all items potentially saving that are actually on the ground. So we do have plans for additional worlds with DayZ, additional missions and maps. So that's scheduled to come in probably around the time that we release modding tools for the DayZ world. So once we've released that, it means that the community can actually go out and create some of the wonderful maps like Taviana and stuff like that were originally used quite extensively for DayZ and Armour. So I think once we release that, there's going to be a lot more of the user-generated content, a lot more new missions. As well, we do have plans for official releases of new islands and things like that, but that's a lot further off than the user-created ones. There were many games that were actually quite an inspiration for DayZ. Particularly, I guess, one big one is Project Zomboid. So the whole team plays a lot of Project Zomboid, and they're actually here at Rezzed this weekend. There's so many elements of that game that are very applicable and testable for the design of DayZ itself. Obviously that they are very different games, but certainly there's a lot of stuff that Project Zomboid does that I wish we could do. Particularly if you look at how the zombies actually work, knocking down doors, I think it provides a much more authentic feel. We also looked quite carefully at what they were doing with crafting and things like that. I guess there's a very large number of other games that have an influence on DayZ. Even games like Rust that were inspired by DayZ as well also give a lot of ideas about how to approach the world, what the players do and things like that. It'd be fair to say that we are quite surprised by the purchases and the player feedback that we received for the standalone. I think there was always the danger that we'd taken too long with the initial scheduled area of being the December 2012 for the release and they're not releasing it till December 2013. It meant there was the danger that we'd waited too long and that other games had come out and sort of filled the need that players have for that type of game. But the response was, yeah, it was really overwhelming, and a lot of really good feedback and a lot of good interactions with the players that are helping us decide how to focus things. So yeah, a lot of people complain about bandits and shooting on sight, and it is definitely an important part of the game and an important area for us to look at. Well, the most important thing for us is that we don't actually overdo how we control what players do. We want to create this environment where the players can actually, I guess, choose what they want to do. I think the key there is for us to provide more tools for the players, more different ways for them to have different play styles. And I think when we do that, a lot of people are really just getting into banditing and shooting players because that's really all the end game there is at the moment. I think once we add additional end games, it won't necessarily mean that players are nicer, but I think there'll be a lot more enticement to group together and maybe do bad or good things, but I think there'll be a lot more different aims and different goals and things to do once you've leveled up as a DayZer. So I guess if I walked into DayZ and there was a barracks there and I could choose any particular weapon at all, I think I definitely choose the pistol. It's a weapon that I like in real life, and I find ammunition's reasonably common for me in DayZ. and it's quite an up close and personal weapon. I also think it's a bit less threatening than a say an M4, and you can fire off a shot a lot faster than a bolt action. So I guess if I had to choose, same situation but a weapon that's not in DayZ, I'd probably go for something like, I'd probably actually go for an advanced melee weapon, I think, like a skill saw or a chainsaw or something like that. So there are a lot of games that are sort of a survival nature out with DayZ. I think DayZ stands a little bit different, is that we really are going for that hardcore survival element. And I think we haven't quite gone as far as we want to with that. I think that's the direction that we need to head with the game. We really want that hardcore survival permadeath. We want to make your player actually have an impact, your character have an impact in the world, even if they lose all their stuff. So I think that's kind of that DayZ's edge, is to go for that real hardcore, that real niche area of survival. So we've previously said that the animals are coming in neutral animals and things like that for hunting. And I guess, yeah, the question is, what are there hostile animals coming in? And there definitely are. I'll be outlining it in today's roadmap. So we want to look at having the neutral animals that you hunt, as well as hostile animals that actually attack you, like wolves. And also we want to look at companion animals such as dogs, horses, things like that. So I get asked quite a bit if there's going to be movable trains on the train tracks. It's not something we've looked at. One of the big issues, I guess, while it's sort of fundamentally possible, the hard part is making sure that the train actually operates on the rails. It's not something we've got programmed into our roadmap. I guess there's been a few times when I've said we absolutely weren't going to have something, and then we've ended up with it. So I don't feel like it's something that we're necessarily going to do. It's certainly not on the plan, that's for sure. So my favourite part of making a game is probably when you start seeing the things that you scoped out actually getting into the game. That's the best part, particularly if they're quite significant and they're something really new. When you see that finally come into game and it's really all come together, that's definitely the best bit. An example for us would be throwing. So when we finally saw all the work that went into a new physics SDK come out, so that you can actually throw, you can see your character moving their arm, and the items bouncing around the world, that's definitely the best bit. I suppose the worst bit is all those unexpected things that come along that delay things, and you can end up focusing very long periods of time fixing bugs and things that crept into the game that you just didn't expect. And that's the worst bit, because it can really delay everything and mean that you don't get to work on the fun part, which is the new stuff.
Okay, well that's it. Thank you for giving us your time.
No worries, thanks very much.
Okay.